elephant in the room. Bryan Reynolds has asked for a trade. What was your reaction when you heard? Were you surprised? And
yeah, I think it's unfortunate when things become public like that. But my expectation or our expectation, and Bryan Reynolds is going to be who Bryan Reynolds is on the field. And we've talked continuously about the way he plays the game and the effort he gives. And in my conversations with him, I don't think that's going to change. So the business side we will let be handled. But my expectation is Bryan Reynolds will continue to be the player that he is.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to him or ask him since that was?
Since it was made public, I did not. I talked to him right before it came public, and we had a good conversation. And we talked through some things. And I think, and you guys know me, in any instance, any conversation that I have with players privately will stay private. But overall, the tone of the conversation was a good conversation.
Shelton, I believe you have a relationship with Don Mattingly. If I'm speaking incorrectly, please correct me. But in 2018, he went through something similar with JT Realmuto. Did you talk to him about that? Might you talk to him about that, about handling that sort of?
Yeah, I have not talked to Donnie about it, but congratulations to him because I saw that he just went to work for the Blue Jays. But no, I think in this situation, we're just focusing on what we're doing for next year, how we're building next year, and going off that. So had not thought at all about having conversation with Donnie about that.
If he does come back, or if he doesn't, either way, are any outfield spots cemented for next year as far as who plays where, or is it? You guys can kind of a feeling out process of how the best fit is going to be.
Yeah, I think as we've talked about throughout the 3 years here, versatility is really important. We still see Bryan as a center fielder, and Bryan will play center field. And the fact that we have other people that can play on the corners, that can go to center, I think that's extremely important, and we'll continue to make sure we stay versatile. But I don't think we have any cemented, and it does not shock me, Rob, that you asked a lineup question December the 6th, but I think versatility is extremely important for us. But we see Bryan as the center fielder.
What do you think of the two hitters you guys have added to the roster here?
Yeah, really excited about our additions and appreciate the fact that we were aggressive coming into the offseason in terms of we knew first base was a place that we needed to get better. And we added not only one, but we added two. And the fact that we're able to add Carlos into a situation where we have a ton of young Latin players, especially young Dominican players. And if any of you guys have, and I'm sure you've done, if you've done any homework on Carlos Santana, we're talking about an elite human being that we're bringing into our clubhouse that wanted to be in Pittsburgh, was excited to be there. And then getting G-Man, who can facilitate in so many roles, has the ability to hit. We have two guys that probably are going to benefit as much as anybody in the game from the lack of shifting. So those were important things, and the fact that we were able to go out and probably take away one of our biggest needs early in the offseason by getting the first baseman that we wanted, first base DH when we wanted, was really important.
Talk to Derek. Speaking of young Dominican players, O'Neal Cruz is now playing in the Dominican Republic. What are the reports you've gotten and what he's been doing?
Yeah, well, the reports I've gotten, we were fortunate. Donnie Kelly, our bench coach, was just there. He was down and he spent 4 days in the Dominican, was able to see O'Neal, was able to see Rudy, was able to see Miguel Andujar, and that was really important for us. And Donnie was actually rapid texting me during the game about some of the things that O'Neal was doing. So the reports have been really good. I've seen some of the videos of him just actually working out. It looks like he's on a mission to be stronger, and I know that's something that we've challenged him on, and he's kind of challenged himself on. But the reports have been really positive, and we were fortunate. Not only are we getting good reports, but we were able to have one of our coaches hands-on down there to be able to see it.
So you talk about getting stronger. What is there anything else that you're looking for him specifically this winter? What he's doing there?
Well, I think the biggest thing is consistency, and we talk throughout the end of the offseason is just the pitches he swings at, the pitches he doesn't swing at. We were able to see that improve in September, which is, number one, challenging to do at the major league level, but it's also encouraging with the fact that we know how much better he wants to get. So those are the things. And then, defensively with his footwork, we're talking about an NBA player that plays shortstop. And at times, even though the arm is extremely prolific, his feet wouldn't get underneath him, and he would have to maneuver the ball, and we just need to make sure that he gets his feet underneath him a little bit better.
Will you guys play at all with him in the outfield, or would you rather him concentrate all of his efforts at short?
In winter ball?
winter ball, spring training, anytime?
Yeah,
What's
I
the
think-
timeline on introducing that again?
Right now, I think we see him as a shortstop. I wouldn't totally dismiss him going to the outfield at some point in spring training. I mean, I think I told him at one point I was going to play him, Rudy, and Marcano in the outfield one day as a joke, and they were all three so excited about it. I may have to do it just to make them happy. But overall, we see O'Neill as a shortstop.
Talked about Bryan's particular style of leadership, how he's very much someone who leads by example. Kind of given how this situation kind of unfolded, is there any concern that things might be a little odd coming into spring training if he's still a member of the Pirates?
No, I don't think that anything is going to affect the way Bryan Reynolds is as a player, as the way he is as a clubhouse. He's such a good human being that I don't think any of this stuff will affect our clubhouse at all.
You're also going to be bringing up a lot of rookies next year, and this is someone that they're going to be looking forward to. Do you feel like even if he is the same Bryan Reynolds and there isn't a change there, just the fact that this was out in the open, does that maybe have an impact?
Well, I think the impact in our clubhouse will be that Bryan will continue to be the person he is. So don't think that will have any impact on our clubhouse. And with our young players, I think coming to the big leagues is just immersing themselves in the big leagues and immersing them. And I want our young players to watch how Bryan Reynolds plays. And I think we've said this time and time again that if we get everyone to play, with the aggressiveness and the effort that he plays, we're in really good shape because of how he exemplifies that. So do not expect that to be any of an issue.
How much have you seen of Endy Rodriguez as a former catcher yourself? What do you think?
He's really good. No, I'm excited. I mean, I think Indy's, when Ben Cherington came in, we talked about identifying, we talked about deploying, we talked about developing. This kind of fits in all those. We were able to identify a player and get him. We were able to develop him in our own system. We're talking about a player that was in the DSL, and now we're going to get a chance to deploy him at some point, which the ability to catch, the ability to play second base, the ability to play the corner outfields, we're talking about a rare athlete. And he just continues to get better as he climbs level to level. Is there still development? Yes. But are we excited that Endy Rodriguez is a Pirate? 100%. And I think he just fits into this good group of young players we have that Pirates players are going to be excited about.
Do you envision him being a 120-game-a-year catcher, or do you envision him being something bounces around?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I think that's something we'll find out the more he catches. I mean, this is a kid that's played, 40 games above the A-ball level. And, as excited as we get about things, we also have to temper that and let him get into a situation in Indianapolis this year and let him play and kind of work off that.
Shelton, with Santana and Choi, do you have one that you prefer over the other defensively? I know you haven't put eyes on them; they haven't played yet. But
Right.
do you go into it with somebody thinking they're more the defensive guy?
No preconceived notion on it. I think to our point, we'll get in and get him in camp. And then the other thing, and Carlos and I talked about it, we have to just make sure we monitor his body. We are talking about a guy that's 36 years old and has logged as many games as anybody in baseball, or in the top 3 or 4 over the last few years. So we have to do that. It's going to be interesting once we get G-Man in to talk to him. Now he's going to be in a situation he's not on the turf as he was in Tampa, and kind of work off that. So it'll be more conversational or relationship things as we get into camp.
You mentioned the shift and how that might impact Choi. Santana, there's other rule changes, the pitch clock. How do you think those rule changes are going to impact not only the Pirates specifically, but the game as a whole positively?
Well, I think the one thing for the Pirates that's a positive is the fact that we've had a lot of players that have played under these because we're so young. So we actually have a guideline or a template because of the fact that they have played games, especially for the pitchers with the pitch clock. And then the other thing is as you guys saw in September, we have some really athletic guys. And the rule changes are based to make the game more athletic, to make the game flow. So we need to try to figure out how we can take advantage to that to be able to score more runs.
Do you anticipate maybe your role or maybe how you approach being a little different this year? Whenever past couple of years we've had to talk about front office, development here and getting guys like in majors, and this year you're actually going to have them up here. Does that maybe change some things?
Well, with those two guys specifically, they're going to start in the minor leagues, but I think we're seeing a larger chunk of that core group of development guys that are in the big leagues now, which is really important for us. And like we talked about last year, the difference between AAA and the big leagues is probably the biggest it's ever been. We were fortunate enough that we were able to get a lot of reps for those guys at the major league level this year, and I think we just need to continue to build off that to get better. But the other portion of this is it's an exciting group of players. I mean, they do things that a lot of young players can't, so that should, provide for a lot of entertainment.
Bay, is his primary position outfield at this point? Like, I think about Cruz at short and the young guys you have at second. Like, is that where you guys would like to see him maybe set down roots?
I don't think we've had a place where Bay's going to set down roots. We feel he can play second. We feel he can play short. I mean, I played him at one game in center late in the season just to do it. Just we had talked about doing it, but we feel that his versatility is something that's really important, and we will continue to build off that, depending on how we're going to build lineups, which Rob will probably ask another lineup question here in a second. But depending on how we build our lineups, the flexibility to be able to move him. I mean, if you look at our lineup, I think there's one guy that probably plays one primary position, and he actually played short a little bit last year. But other than that, these guys have the ability to bounce around.
Well, here's a lineup question for you then. How do you look at the D? You mentioned before with Santana, like giving him some downtime to keep him healthy. Do you look at DH as kind of like a half day off, or is that you know what I mean? If you need to give a guy get him off his feet a little bit, maybe is DH an option, or if he's down, is Santana's down? Is he just like down?
No, I think the DH. I don't know if it's a half day off. It's more how they prepare going into the day, what they do that day, what they do the night before. One of the things that Carlos and I talked about and we try to do with all of our guys is let them know the night before, if they're going to be in the lineup. So conversations that we will have just to make sure that he knows how to prepare going into it.
As a young athletic team that needs to score more runs, with the rules changes, do you see yourselves being more aggressive, more slow bases, really pushing the envelope more?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope that would be we would use our skill set. We've talked at times in baseball about how you cater to your skill set, and we see other sports does a much better job of that. But because of the fact we are young, athletic, and we have had players that have played within this system, I would hope that would be the way we trend towards during the season.
I talked a few days ago with Baker about something related to that. He talked about how you're kind of develop ways to score one run now. That's an important thing in the system. And you see Altoona stealing like 160 bases or whatever it is. How does that fit? Is that your style of game? Is that kind of like what you've been waiting to kind of implement in a lot of ways?
I think your style, or the manager style of game, is built on your personnel. And I think we've done a good job in the minor leagues looking at, and then Bake has kind of deployed his staff to make sure that we're using that skill set. And like you said, in Altoona, we were able to do that. Now, Altoona also had some specific rule changes that were different that allowed that, which is fine because that allows us to talk. And we had Kyron with us late in the year. I think you guys remember. And one of the main reasons Kyron was with us was for him to sit down with Donnie and I and to walk through like how he managed the game and what he used, because we don't have the ability to do that because we haven't run the game that way. So there's certain factors, but I do really appreciate that in player development in the minor leagues, Bake has kind of outlined with conversations with the major league staff of hey, what should we do, how should we use it, and then some of it just comes down to what your players are. If we have a bunch of guys that just stand in the box and try to hit homers, you're not going to be able to steal 160 bases there. We had a really athletic group there, and I think the other thing that we've talked about is not only making good base stealers, but good base runners to try to create that first to third, second to home type atmosphere.
Mitch Keller took a nice step forward last year. What are you looking for him now? What's the next step for him?
Consistency. I think the one thing we've talked about with Mitch was he was a prospect for a long time, and sometimes when prospects comes to the big leagues, you automatically expect him to be the guy you want them to be, and it takes time. And we saw Mitch go through that process, and I think it was very humbling for him to go through that process, but it also made him work really hard. We got about a third of the way through the season this year. We identified some things in terms of not only with his delivery, but with his pitch mix that we could go to. And we saw a lot of consistency in what he was. The next step is continue to build off that consistency. The one place, and I think I said at the end of the year, I was more proud of Mitch than any player I've ever been around, is every time he took the mound, he believed he was the best pitcher in the game. And I think that's something we have to let him continue to grow and that confidence, and that's really important.
Choi said that he didn't think the elbow surgery was going to be a very big deal. He really downplayed it. Are the reports good so far on his rehab?
Yeah, his rehab has gone good. We were happy with how the surgery came out, and just text messaging with him. He feels like he's in good shape. Doesn't feel like he's going to be behind at all. It'll be, once he gets into the States and we're able to get eyes on him and get him into camp, we'll be aware of it. But, from the conversations I've had with him, he feels really good about it.
You've been a head coach in this league. Why do you think those jobs are hard? Why do you think there's so much turnover?
Well, why there's so much turnover is because, one of the easiest things to do is just to blame the hitting coach. And the reason it's hard is because anybody that's ever picked up a bat thinks they can be a hitting coach. And because of that, everybody has an opinion on it. And the building and establishing and then the maintaining of relationships with a game that's based on failure is extremely hard. And that's why you see places where the longevity of the hitting coach and the consistency of the hitting coach keeps getting extended, is because, number one, they're able to maintain, but they're also able to change. And the game has changed. I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was a hitting coach, you didn't have to be a movement specialist. Now you have to be some sort of movement specialist, or you have to have someone on your staff that's a movement specialist, and you have to be able to let them have conversations about what hitters are doing. And then I also think hitters know a lot more about what their body is and what the angles are and the things that we can measure. And so it's a challenge. It's a challenging thing. And, I think we're really fortunate that we have Andy Haynes, and it's really easy to critique guys, but the fact that we're going to maintain consistency is really important.
How do you like to interact with guys who have their private strategies in the offseason? Has that dynamic changed over the years?
That dynamic has changed. I think years ago, and I can speak from experience, you were extremely sensitive that almost like it was an indictment that you didn't have the information to provide. But it's become such a norm now, and I think it's one of Andy's strengths, that he builds relationships with those external guys, and we learn about what they're teaching, because ultimately it's about the player. And if the player's in a good position and understands what they're doing, then we're going to get the best for them.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shelton.
See you guys.